Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another meta breakdown video. In today's video, we have 3 different tournaments from 3 different regions to cover for the Set 20 Power Absorb format. There was an Oceania, Latin America, and North American tournament that all took place over the weekend. We're going to go over the top 16 for all 3 of those tournaments and go over a handful of deck lists that I want to take a look at. Any links I have to deck lists are going to be made available down in the description. Currently, I know that Egman has Latin America and North America on his site. I'll link that down below. If I see Oceania's tournament results up there somewhere, I will post them down there as well. But we'll get into it. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys do want to help support the channel, I just posted on the Patreon today, actually, the deck list that I wanted to play for the North American Regional. I wasn't able to sign up because it capped way faster than I thought it would, but I posted the full deck, sideboard, and everything on the Patreon for those of you who want to check it out. Pretty spicy leader pick, but I think it's a pretty strong one. So if you want to support, you guys can check that out down below. Anyways, let's get on into it, starting with the Oceania Regionals. As always, shout out to the Lookout and Scrub Games for gathering the data from the other regions. So we had the top 16 here. We have a first place Red Sin Shenron. So we have some pretty different data from all 3 tournaments, and I kind of want to use that to, I guess, sort of make like a line graph as to where the format may go. But we have a pretty large concentration of Sin Shenron here. It looks to be the second most rep deck next to Trunks Vegeta in this particular format, and that makes sense from what we've been seeing. It still seems that no one's found the clear-cut Crimson replacement, so aggro still seems to be in a very strong position. Normally what people say is aggro does well in the beginning of a format when people are still figuring out the mid-range and control strategies, and it tends to fall off as time goes on, but it doesn't seem like Sin is falling off very quickly at all. Gogeta is a bit underrepresented here at only 1 spot from the looks of things, but we have some other interesting data as well. Only 1 Golden Frieza, when we've seen Golden Frieza do very, very well in this format. I think Golden Frieza is a very strange deck. Last week I called it the potential best deck in the format, and I think that might somewhat be true when the player is running somewhat like lukewarm. I don't want to say running hot because Golden is a very consistent deck, but Golden does have a lot of answers in the form of like Koitsukai, punishing untapping with 1-drops, different things like that. There are a lot of silver bullets that end up hurting Golden quite a bit. Even Black Mass Sand's gotten a lot better because Golden is such a good deck this format. So if people are prepared for Golden, I think it gets a little bit worse, and I think Sin actually does give Golden a really hard time, especially if the Golden players lose a dice roll. So this does make a good bit of sense here, even though it was Golden Frieza in 2nd place. Still not surprised it finished so highly in the tournament, but I think it does have a bad matchup in the form of Sin Shenron. Not nearly unwinnable, but definitely not super favorable. Spring Kai of Time, we see Spring Kai of Time and no Cumber here representing black, but we do have a Hatchyak. I've been saying for the longest time, Hatchyak is probably good like every single format, but people just don't play it because it's extremely slow and extremely boring. And a lot of times, or probably most times, your games are going to go to the end of time procedures, and I guess you have a pretty decent shot at winning those time procedures because your leader can just awaken at 8 life theoretically. But yeah, I think it's just way too slow pace of a deck for people to actually play frequently. But I think Hatchyak is just always really good. The leader's a built-in Flying Nimbus. Like, you know, you can't ask for too much more. Trunks Vegeta, though, finally towering over Golden Frieza. We haven't seen this in quite some time. Golden Frieza seems to be the most dominant yellow deck of this format. And again, I think that will just fluctuate with how prepared people end up coming to tournaments for Golden Frieza, as opposed to Trunks Vegeta being a little bit tougher to deal with. Like, some of the same answers apply. Koitsukai's annoying. Black Mass Sand's annoying because Trunks Vegeta wants to play 1-drops out of his drop area. But I think it has slightly less answers than Golden Frieza, especially because the 3-drop barrier Trunks is just such a pesky card to both attack around and just get off the board in general. Seeing a yellow AOD and an Invoker and a Janemba is all very, very surprising in this format as well. These are definitely just rogue picks. I don't expect them to see them very often, but they are all cool picks nonetheless, except for Janemba. Not a huge fan. But we do have 2 more yellow decks wrapping up the top 16, Majin Vegeta and Kid Goku Reboot. So a fair amount of yellow here, even though it was kind of dispersed widely into different decks, whereas the main red concentration is definitely in the form of Sin Shenron. So aggro seems to be the dominant playstyle over here in Oceania. Let's take a look at the next event, which was the Latin American Regional. We have the top 16 here. First place is taken down by Gotenks Reboot. Now we will take a look at this list at the end of the video, but I'm just going to go ahead and call that one an outlier. I don't expect to see Gotenks win very much. I don't even expect to see it top very much. I don't know if Gotenks has any particularly good matchups in this format. I wouldn't think any of the red decks are great matchups because green has generally just always struggled against red. And speaking of which, we have a super over concentration of Vegeta here, which is definitely surprising. I mean, just to see the vast difference from Latin America to Oceania, where one Vegeta barely topped, to having so many here in this top cut, very surprising. Vegeta super close to taking down this event, definitely the most dominant deck in this particular format. And then we go through the rest of the color wheel. We have some usual suspects. This time we do have Cumber complementing Spring Kai of Time as another topping black deck. We have Soul Striker, which, spoiler alert, also topped the North American regional. Maybe that is going to be the de facto replacement to Crimson. Soul Striker is a really good pick in place of Crimson. The only problem Soul Striker has is getting Awakened, which if you're up against a slower deck, that's going to be a problem. But this format is very red heavy, so you might not run into that problem too often. However, I think if you play against 21, they're going to stall you pretty hardcore. They can actually stall you at 8 life until they get fully set up and do what they have to do. We do have a red Broly, which is a very interesting outlier as well. The Champ Pack Broly is pretty solid support for this deck, although it's just good in every single red deck, so it's not like it's a sole boost to red Broly. But if you run hot on red Broly, go first most of your games, you can aggro your opponent out pretty severely. And then some repeat customers, we have Reboot Kid Goku, we have Majin Vegeta. Only one Android 21 is a bit surprising for sure. A Blue Baby, which is definitely a super like outlier control deck. And that wraps up the LATAM top 16. So this is another format where I would say aggro is heavily favored, even maybe a little bit more so than the Oceania regional. I'd even consider like Majin Vegeta an aggro deck. I'd obviously red Broly, Cumber, Spring Kai of Time. We have some pretty heavy concentrated aggro builds here, but also a good amount of control with the Blue Baby, with the Android 21. Not so much in the form of mid-range. We have like Kid Goku representing that and Soul Striker as well. But yeah, very heavy aggro concentration. Maybe we are finally just kind of, I don't want to say reverting, but coming back to a time in Dragon Ball where aggro was the top dog. I feel like for so long throughout like Unison Warrior Block and Zenkai, it's been mid-range, but it seems like we are taking a walk back to aggro being the top strategy. And now we have the top cut April webcam regional, 192 players, full cap, best of 1 pre-side, top 16. North America is always just different, man. So we have so much blue here. We have 3 Android 21 taking both first and second place, 3 Gamma here as well, and I don't believe we saw any Gamma in any of the other regions. We have 2 Trunks Vegeta, which we're gonna take a look at Brian Samuel's list in just a bit, 2 Sin Shenron, 1 Expert 21, which low-key has me a little bit afraid. This deck is kind of degenerate, although it's very reliant on seeing certain cards early. If you don't see them, you can be in a bit of trouble. And Android 13 repeating again, same player from the last time. I do have his profile here on the channel from last time. I heard it was a bit different, but if you want to check his list out, it is going to be down in the description. 1 Rainbow Vegeta, which is pretty cool. I mean, I think it's a really good deck, but I think it's one that we'll see hit and miss every so often. Kid Goku Reboot, though, remains consistent across the board here. Kid Goku Reboot got actually some pretty cool support, indirect support from set 20 in the form of the Hercule Z battle card. You can now tap your Gokus and then restand them with your Yamcha to generate extra draws without having to attack. So if you get floodgated, that's actually a really good way to generate extra draws. Soul Striker again, shout out to Marcus. I'll have his profile here on the channel ASAP. And then 1 Golden Frieza. Again, Golden Frieza not doing so hot this time around, but still definitely represented there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of the topping deck lists. Again, all deck lists are down in the description. Alrighty, let's start with the Gotenks list from Latin America. So what we have here, what I always look for in Gotenks list is what their unison choice is, and here we go with 4 copies of Carefree Combatant. This unison makes the deck ultra consistent where you're able to just grab your fusion pieces that you need to fuse. It is a +1 to your hand, which is kind of nice, and we also have 1 copy of Piccolo Guardian of Earth. Notice we are not playing Vegito. What Vegito offers the deck, Vegito Unison I'm talking about, is an alternate win condition. The -7, being able to crit one of your opponent's lives and make them pitch 3 cards is a really powerful game-ending tool, but again, you just kind of give that up for the consistency that Carefree Combatant offers you. That makes a lot of sense. We have a Cell Xeno here. So what I find very interesting about this format is that aggro is so prevalent, but a lot of people are going ahead and playing these turn 5 SCRs, which we haven't seen in quite some time. The main other deck that's doing this is Golden Frieza. Most Golden Frieza lists seem to have adopted the Golden Cooler SCR, which on turn 5 is pretty much a game-ending card. The problem is sometimes getting to turn 5 with so much red in the format. It's a really interesting dynamic where people are going to these turn 5 SCRs when the format is theoretically a turn 3, turn 4 format, I would say. But if you play against a blue deck or a yellow deck, as Gotenks here, you're gonna wish you had Celzino, which makes a lot of sense. You're kind of hedging your bets on what your matchups will be throughout the day, and if you're able to survive those aggro matchups in a sense. And the other cool card here is Goku's Kamehameha Deflection. This card is actually possibly the best generic green card out of set 20. Negate an attack and pop a 4-drop. That is so good. Like popping Piccolo the Infiltrator, popping Sin Shenron Dread Destroyer. This card is just insane. Unfortunately, if you're not Goku GT, you can't use it for free, but I mean, still for one, popping a 4 or less on swing is really good. Now I want to take a look at the first and second place Android 21 list from the North American Regional. I basically want to see how similar or different they are here. So this is a clean 50 card list. We have 4 copies of Pan, which is just so broken in this deck. 2 copies of Speedy Sub I find very interesting. I talked about this in my recent deck profile for this leader. You can basically play this, or you can play Android 21 Mandatory Gathering. The main difference is Speedy Sub does not have a limit on what she can search in terms of energy costs on androids. So she's much like your Unawakened leader. You can search your SCR, you can search your 8-drop, which is all very useful. The downside is Mandatory Gathering gives your opponent a clone token, which you can then later use as energy. But in aggro matchups, you actually don't want to give your opponent a clone token. So that's why I like Speedy Sub. It's pretty cool to see this list playing it as well. We're leaning into the blue-green stuff quite a bit more, though. We're playing the Bionic Blitz super combo. This leader has no problem getting to 4 life, but still, if you want to play that hand control game, this is going to help you do that. And we do have Kusu to complement that as well. When it's played or comboed, your opponent's going to go ahead and bottom deck a card, and on play, you're gonna be able to kill a 6 or less. So really solid counterplay. Punishes things like Broly Crown, punishes a bunch of the deflect cards in the format as well. This card is really good. One interesting choice here is Android 21 Wavering Will in the main deck. I definitely want to know how effective or not this card was. I've tested 21 a lot, and I've only liked this card in blue mirrors, so I personally would like side deck it. I do wonder how much mileage you got for this player in the main board, but I mean, sideboard best of 1 doesn't matter. If the card's dead, like if you're playing against a red deck or something, you can just side out all 4 copies. That's not a big deal. We'll take a look at the sideboard in a little bit as well. 4 copies of Android 21 Total Audacity makes sense. We have our check lands as well as our full power counter Floodgate. Playing 4 copies of the 8-drop, even with cunning in the format, you still play 4 because it is a free 10k counter. We have our SCR, of course, our 1 of Boo. A little bit surprised to see that being our only unison option, but basically in place of that, we're playing Kusu instead of Android 18 Let the Battle Begin, which I do actually quite like. If you wanted to play a no unison build, this card is a really nice replacement to Android 18 Let the Battle Begin. Let's go ahead and go down to the sideboard. 2 Absolute Release Ball makes a ton of sense. Tapion, I wonder what this was for in particular. Maybe like a hand control matchup where you want to generate extra draws, or maybe a matchup where you need Android 18 Let the Battle Begin. Maybe like, again, Sin Shenron, counter the Dread Destroyers, maybe something along those lines. We have 2 copies of a Bad Omen for just that burn damage win condition. 1 copy of Perfect Force Cell. This is a really cool tech. Turn 7, your opponent pitches down to 3 cards. They can't interact with it like they theoretically could interact with Turning the Tide with Jiren. So in a deck that can splash green like this or Gamma, this is a pretty cool win con, I'm not gonna lie. 2 Koitsukai, Mirror Match, blue, yellow, all the Floodgate stuff. Smoke Dragon makes a ton of sense. So now let's keep a mental image of this and go take a look at Daryl's second place list. We have his Android 21 build. He is going ahead and playing 4 Mandatory Gathering, so it's a little bit different than Speedy Sub. 2 Xeno super combos, 1 Vegeta super combo. I like the super combo split a lot. Again, this leader gets to 4 life, no problem. So I am a big fan of Vegeta. Xeno is also really good in this deck because it allows you to tap out for Floodgates and then get energy back open afterwards. We have Total Audacity. We have our check lands. We do have 2 copies of Bad Omen in the main board. 2 Gohan Power Claimed. No Goku Black in either list, though. I am a little bit surprised at that. But Power Claim, always really good. Ceaseless Despair, and we have a bit of combo power in this deck as well. We have 3 copies of Beerus, 3 copies of Senzu Bean. Me personally, I think blue is played one of 2 ways right now. You either play full Floodgate like a lot of blue Android decks currently are, or you play a combo centric deck like Crimson was with Beans, with Beerus Destroys, with Ultra Instincts. This is going for a bit of a hybrid, and it made second place, so it must obviously be really good, but definitely an interesting phenomena to see where it kind of splits that blue method right down the middle. And then for sideboard, same thing. Perfect Force Cell in the side deck as a 1 of WinCon. 4 copies of Kusu in the sideboard instead of the main board. We have Piccolo Assimilated Ability. This is a cool 1 of tech. Basically a barrier card that is going to help you against aggro if you get there, which in this deck you should theoretically get there on turn 3 because you'll be playing your ramp on turn 2. This is a pretty cool tech card. We have 3 copies of Goku Striving to be the Best. I do wonder what particular matchup this was for because I feel like most aggressive decks are hitting you with higher cost battle cards. Daryl, if you're watching, definitely let me know down below what this card was meant to be used against. 2 copies of Raditz Unison. Big fan of this as well. Double blocking Unison. It's very defensive. It's somewhat like the best defensive Unison next to Boo, which is now obviously limited to 1 copy per deck. 1 more Bean if you need it, and 1 copy of Steadfast Ally. Very cool tech as well, because you can arrival in your SCR during your opponent's turn, which is pretty funny. Wipe their board, wipe their Unison. This is like the end all be all of like combo into play arrival, and your opponent's attacker is just dead. So very cool stuff here. Congratulations to these players. Let's take a look at Brian Samuel's 3rd place list. He is playing Trunks Vegeta. He has been playing this deck forever, so I know that he knows it absolutely inside and out. We have a 54 card list. He is playing 3 of each 1-drop, 3 Vegeta and 3 Trunks. You might think that's a little bit nutso until you go ahead and look at Kibito Kai in the main deck here. This card is so cool in yellow Saiyan decks because it searches out all your yellow Saiyans as well as your Krillin super combos. So the reach there is just like really good. He's also got 2 Bulma in order to just find the rest of his Trunks and Vegetas, but Kibito Kai on turn 2 can basically just fish out whichever 1-drop you need, which if you didn't hit Vegeta or Trunks turn 1, you fish out Vegeta to get Awakened. That's really cool there. Then we have a full 3 copies of Smoke Dragon. Very surprised to see a full 3, but yeah, yellow sometimes has an issue removing active mode barrier cards. Also offers you draw power if you need it. Definitely not bad. T-Blow in the main makes a lot of sense in this particular format. We have our full 4 Robotic Riposte, our 3 Vegito Overwhelming Might. We have 2 Cooler. We have 1 Vegito, which evolves over the Goku and Vegeta Alliance of Rivals. This is a decent amount of support from the Zenkai Dash Pack that just gives Trunks Vegeta a little bit more aggro pressure. But to be honest with you, I think Trunks Vegeta's best aggro came from set 20 in the form of Goku Vegeta Ultimate Duo. 1 cost 20k double strike on demand that negates skills and chaos something in rest mode, as well as the 1 of Universe at Stake, the 1 of Vile Onslaught. Lots of really good set 20 cards for this leader in particular. Let's go down on the sideboard. 1 Machika Bora just for your super linear strategies. We have 1 more copy of the Trunks Unison. A little bit surprised to see no copies of SS2 Gohan Unison, but this deck's never been the best at facilitating a 3-cost Unison because you fully tap out for it. In an aggro matchup, that's pretty much dead. In a blue matchup, you can get away with it, but you got to kind of hedge your bets there. 1 Bergamo, 1 Death Blaster, 1 Chi-Chi Melee Matriarch, 1 Trunks the Cunning, a classic amount of 1-ofs from Brian Samuel, 2 Godly Destruction Whis, Koitsukai Incredibles format, Flying Nimbus, and 2 copies of Goku Steadfast Assistance, just for your non-deflect threats, like I keep saying, the Sin Shenron Dread Destroyer. So those are all the lists that I wanted to go over in this particular video, but again, every single list that I have is going to be down in the description. Make sure to check those out. Congrats to all these players. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about this format. I'll see you guys in the next one.